The business of football drove a wedge between two best friends that lasted for years. Joe Montana and Dwight Clark, once inseparable teammates who shared everything from Super Bowl victories to living arrangements, found themselves on opposite sides of one of the most painful decisions in NFL history. What fans didn't know was that Clark was caught in an impossible position, forced to choose between his loyalty to his best friend and his duty as a team executive. The relationship between the two friends coarsened as Clark, along with coach George Seifert and the rest of the 49ers brass, committed to younger and stronger Steve Young. But that single painful chapter is not the story of Dwight Clark. The real story is one of an improbable underdog who reached the absolute pinnacle of his profession, a celebrated icon who fell into the wilderness of financial hardship, and finally a man who confronted an incurable disease with courage that inspired millions. The final chapter of Dwight Clark's life began quietly in September 2015, with a subtle but persistent sign that something was wrong. He started feeling weakness in his left hand. Initially, he paid it little mind, attributing it to chronic neck pain from his playing days. But the weakness persisted and spread. What followed was a frustrating journey for answers. Over many months, Clark visited 6 different neurologists and 3 ALS specialists, undergoing a battery of tests to eliminate all other possibilities before receiving the devastating diagnosis. He had ALS, the incurable neurodegenerative condition also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. On March 19, 2017, Clark chose to share his diagnosis with the world. In a candid statement, he acknowledged how difficult the words were to say, but vowed to fight like hell and live every day to the fullest. He also directly addressed the question that loomed over his diagnosis: its potential connection to his football career. "I've been asked if playing football caused this," he wrote. "I don't know for sure, but I certainly suspect it did." He specifically pointed to the 3 concussions he had sustained as a player as a possible contributing factor. His courageous fight is a story that needs to be heard, so if you believe athletes deserve better after their careers are over, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more stories like Dwight's. But to understand the full measure of this man's courage, we need to go back to the beginning. Dwight Clark's path to NFL stardom was anything but preordained. Born in Kinston, North Carolina, his athletic ambitions were initially directed not at football, but at basketball. At 6'4", his first love was hoops, and he only accepted a scholarship to play football at Clemson University as a secondary option. His journey there was marked by uncertainty and struggle. Moved from quarterback to wide receiver as a freshman, he was then shifted to strong safety as a sophomore. He disliked the defensive position so intensely that he briefly left school, contemplating a transfer to pursue his basketball dream. Even after returning to offense, his collegiate football career was statistically pedestrian. In 3 seasons at Clemson, he amassed just 33 receptions. He was known more for his charismatic personality than his on-field production. By NFL standards, he was an afterthought. The moment that altered Dwight Clark's life arrived with the ringing of a telephone. In spring 1979, new San Francisco 49ers head coach Bill Walsh traveled to Clemson to scout quarterback Steve Fuller, who happened to be Clark's roommate. As Clark headed out to play golf, he answered the phone by chance. It was Walsh, who needed someone to catch passes for Fuller's workout, and asked Clark to participate. During that impromptu session, something clicked. While Fuller had a tough day, Clark caught everything thrown his way: high throws, low throws, even one-handed grabs. Walsh was deeply impressed. That single performance was enough. Weeks later, the 49ers selected Clark with the 249th overall pick in the 10th round, a selection that was reportedly questioned within the organization. He quickly shed his underdog status, becoming a reliable target in Walsh's revolutionary West Coast offense. But it was one play that would define his career and change professional football forever. The air in Candlestick Park on January 10, 1982, was thick with tension. The Dallas Cowboys had dominated the NFC for a decade. With 58 seconds left, the San Francisco 49ers trailed 27-21, facing 3rd and 3 from the Cowboys' 6-yard line. What happened next is etched into the permanent memory of the sport. Montana, flushed from the pocket under immense pressure from 3 Cowboys defenders, lofted a high, seemingly impossible pass toward the back of the end zone. Soaring to meet it was Dwight Clark. At the apex of his leap, the receiver stretched his body to its absolute limit and plucked the ball from the sky with just his fingertips. His feet landed inbounds. The stadium erupted. Montana later admitted he never saw the completion. He only heard the roar. The ensuing extra point gave the 49 ERs a 28-27 victory in their first Super Bowl ticket. The play, immortalized as the catch, was more than a game winner. It was a seismic shift in the NFL's landscape, ending the Cowboys' reign and launching the 49 ER's 1980s dynasty. For Clark, it was his professional transformation from player to icon. Over 9 seasons with the 49 ERs, he tallied 506 catches for 6,750 yards and 48 touchdowns, earned 2 Pro Bowl selections, and won 2 Super Bowls. But after 1987, his career ended suddenly. A significant knee injury from 1983 had lingering effects, and by 1987, accumulated damage reduced his effectiveness. However, his departure wasn't entirely his decision. Bill Walsh forced the reluctant Clark into retirement. For a player who fought so hard to make the league, being pushed out was devastating. After playing, Clark transitioned to the 49 ER's front office, eventually becoming general manager. In 1999, he left for a bigger challenge as the first GM of the re-established Cleveland Browns. His tenure was difficult. The expansion Browns struggled with a 21-43 record. After hiring head coach Butch Davis, a power struggle ensued. Davis demanded full personnel control, stripping Clark of his responsibilities. Rather than accept a diminished role, Clark resigned in 2002. He later admitted taking the Browns job was probably a mistake. Leaving the NFL, Clark returned to North Carolina and ventured into real estate development. This proved disastrous. In the late 2000s, coinciding with the economic downturn, his business failed, plunging him into severe financial distress. His personal life also collapsed. In 2009, his 26-year marriage to Ashley Stone ended in divorce. The man who had been a sports icon was now facing bankruptcy. The devastation was so complete that he was forced to sell his 5 Super Bowl rings, the tangible manifestations of his greatest achievements. It was rock bottom. But this wasn't the end. In 2011, he married Kelly Radzikowski, who became his source of immense support. When his ALS diagnosis became public, something remarkable happened. The response stood in stark contrast to his earlier isolation. This time, he wasn't alone. Former 49 ER's owner, Edward DeBartolo Jr., became what teammate Roger Craig called a guardian angel, providing unwavering support and flying Clark to Japan for experimental treatment. As his condition worsened, DeBartolo hosted a final reunion, flying in dozens of former teammates. The entire 49 ER's community rallied around him. Old wounds like his rift with Montana were healed. The full context of that painful conflict becomes clear now. Clark had been caught between friendship and duty. As Montana's friend, his loyalty was absolute. As a team executive, his obligation was to the franchise's future, which pointed toward Steve Young. The breaking point came in 1993 with Montana's trade to Kansas City. Clark was against the move, but was asked to convince Montana to accept it. Montana misinterpreted this, believing his best friend was pushing him out. The misunderstanding caused years of silence. It was several years where we didn't talk very much, Clark recalled, and this was my best friend. So that was rough. Healing began when Montana's wife Jennifer invited Clark to Joe's retirement ceremony. Years later, they reconnected and talked through the past. Clark made clear he never wanted the trade. The organization honored him with Dwight Clark Day on October 22, 2017, his last public appearance. From a suite, his voice weakened by disease, he looked at teammates who had flown in from across the country. "I just want to see my teammates," he said emotionally. Despite being confined to a wheelchair, Clark's spirit remained unbroken. Those who spent time with him were struck by his courage, humor, and complete lack of self-pity. He never complained. Dwight Clark died on June 4, 2018, at age 61. His wife Kelly wrote, "He passed peacefully surrounded by many of the people he loved most." Montana concluded his eulogy with a poignant callback. "You know, they don't call it the throw, and I will catch you on the other side." Clark's legacy extends beyond football. By speaking openly about his ALS and suspecting it was linked to his playing career, he contributed to critical conversations about player safety. He inspired the Golden Heart Fund, established by former 49 ERs to support alumni facing post-career challenges. The catch endures as a metaphor for a life spent reaching beyond the grasp. First for a perfectly thrown football, and finally for dignity and peace facing insurmountable odds. Dwight Clark caught them both. What do you remember most about him? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories honoring athletes who face their greatest battles off the field.